Is this thing super bad? Chart is quick. Luckily, my first thing that I like to encourage, reading a few times without writing, pen down, just for appreciation of the poem. Trying to find the cadence, the vibe, what sticks out to me. Not even thinking about that yet, actually. Trying to not intellectualize the poem. Letting it speak to me as art. Deep. I am a black pit, too deep to be filled. I feel people do not realize how deep my pit is until they have fallen too far into the darkness and broken all of their bones. All I feel I do is entrap people in and let them fall, because I will try anything for the darkness to go away. For the darkness to be filled with light once more. I was never this deep before, but I have been hollowed out, and it is harder and harder to fill what has been lost. I fear all light is gone and will never return, because who can fill a pit as deep as mine? We got some feelings in here. We like feelings on this channel. Deep. I'm a black pit too deep to be filled. I feel people do not realize how deep my pit is until they have fallen too far into the darkness and broken all of their bones. All I feel I do is entrap people in and let them fall, because I will try anything for the darkness to go away. For the darkness to be filled with light once more. I was never this deep before, but I have been hollowed out, and it is harder and harder to fill what has been lost. I fear all light is gone and will never return, because who can fill a pit as deep as mine? Is it even connected? Oh, there we go. Look at how fast it charges. 31%. Oh, I'm writing in white. That makes sense. Okay. This is by ArsonAsher69. Make that a little bigger for the world to see. Not 99. Okay. Credit. Where credit is due. So, things that stick out to me. Usually what I like to do on a third read is just underline. What do I like here? Not even what do I like. What strikes me in any way? I am a black pit, too deep to be filled. I feel people do not realize how deep my pit is until they have fallen too far into the darkness and broken all of their bones. All I feel I do is entrap people in and let them fall, because I will try anything for the darkness to go away. For the darkness to be filled with light once more. I was never this deep before, but I have been hollowed out, and it is harder and harder to fill what has been lost. I fear all light is gone and will never return. Because who can fill a pit as deep as mine? Okay. I see some things of interest, obviously, underlining things. And I normally have a sort of loose color scheme, even though I'm not super organized. Helps me with reading the poem and just organizing my thoughts, even though it usually doesn't end up that organized. Things get written in all the wrong colors. Blue, I like to do for questions. And as someone who likes to be organized, Asher, this sort of process might help you feel more grounded in your poetic analysis. So I have blue for questions, green for things I like, red for critique. And you might ask, well, like, why are you doing critique, right? On a poem, let's say, like Bukowski, I try to critique Bukowski's poems. I try to challenge them. Because even if someone seems to be a better poet than you, I think sometimes I look at Bukowski and say he's a better poet than me. It's maybe not honest. Or just consider everyone a better poet. But you should be critiquing and challenging their work anyway. If you can look at something told to you, let's say by a teacher, this is really good, and say, no, or yes, it's really good, it probably always is going to be really good, it's poetry. But if you can look at that work that's maybe touted as something really good and critique it, find something. Find anything. Try to find critique, even if you think the poem is perfect. That's going to help you improve your poetry. Black, this is more for me on stream, but like large scale discussion. And I guess if you were doing your own analysis for like school, you could talk about themes here. And you could talk about like what it means to you, the meaning. I have a few other colors I throw around, orange is somewhere between those things. Got this cool like teal color, or aqua. Whatever. It's fun to make it pretty, right? In the best sense of the word, you have very strong teacher vibes. And I've never been more intrigued by poetry analysis. That makes me so happy to hear, because that's what I want this to be. I want to show people, teach people that there's so much beauty in spending time and analyzing a piece of work. Dusk of Nyla, OMG 2/3 Lotus, I love you, Star. Welcome in. We're reading a poem by ArsonAsher, who is in chat right now, and talking about all of that, and then I'll be getting back to poetry. Thanks for going to the amusement park with you last night, Uwu. You know what? You're welcome for our parasocial escapades. I'm glad that you... it's really funny. I hope that was a pleasant dream, and I hope the snap back to reality wasn't too harsh. So, all this being said, let's dive into the poem. So something I initially underlined, which I think is sort of a question, not a question I'm immediately asking you, because you usually aren't able to ask the poet questions, and I usually don't like to. My pit. We talk about my pit and how I am a black pit. These are conflicted. You're welcome, Dusk. These are conflicting, and that's okay. Here's why. I'm already getting into big themes. Conflict. And by that I mean literally conflicting messages in a poem. It's a really cool thing to do and a really good move, because it says it casts doubt. And you might say, wait, but I'm writing a poem. I want the person reading the poem to think a certain thing or understand something. I don't want them to be doubting my message or my words. But it's a lot better than you might think. This forces the reader to take time and think and analyze and understand why you're making this contradiction or this discrepancy. This could have been an accident. I mean, you do it throughout, which just like a lack of deciding which like sort of word you want to use, but also in analysis, something you want to consider. Everything is intentional. Everything. Assume that every capitalization and punctuation mark, even if it's grammatically wrong, is intentional. Assume that every contradiction is intentional in a poem. It's just my preferred way of doing things. I think most people agree. I'm not sure why I feel strongly about that, but I do. So, back to our contradiction. I am and my pit. I am a pit, my pit. This is a contradiction because if I am the pit, then my pit is me, and it's like me, basically. It's not quite right. But this also shows two ways that you think about it. You see yourself here. This is really important. You see yourself physically as a pit. And the pit, as we've seen, swallows people. It hurts. It breaks people, their bones. And that is you, Asher. Right? And that's hard. Best viewers? No way. Oh, it's not on here? I want to ban them. Can I ban them from OBS? I don't know how to ban this person. Oh well. If I had it open on here, I could ban them. Anyway, I'm not buying viewers. Now you also have this idea that there is a pit inside ArsonAsher, and the pit is separate. And these are very different things for a person. I think I am this deep, black, empty, swallowing thing, or there is this thing in me that I can go back and point to and learn to deal with or change. It's a much more daunting thing to try to change your entire being as a pit versus change the pit inside you. And that's something I immediately see, which gives me a sense of like hope, right? If we just say I am a pit, life seems pretty difficult. If there's some amount of our mind saying that I'm separate from the pit, there's some optimism there in a way. And I'm a very optimistic person. I always try to spin poems in a good way. So until they have fallen too far into the darkness and have broken all of their bones. I just like this. All of their bones. Like, it shows that the damage that you think you do, or that you do, is completely pervasive to these people, destructive, right? Going too far into the darkness. They don't realize you're this sort of... Forgot to capitalize one darkness. Okay. That is an... Oh. Come back. Oh no, it's moving. Hold on. Did I get it right? No. This was all up here. My pit. Okay, fixed it. So yeah, you forgot to capitalize one darkness. That's okay. I will fix it for you. Things being unpolished, unfinished in that regard is not an issue. Something to note, when we look at things like capitalization and if we're trying to find meaning in people's punctuation, whatever, I normally wait to do that until the end, the detail work. I like to sort of go in a very like top-down approach from very like macro down to very micro. And this would be punctuation, actual language, and this would be things like the big feelings, the ideas, all that. And sometimes the path looks a little more like that because you notice something in the micro and then it brings you back up and makes you realize something about the large scale ideas, but it's generally the path. So, but yeah, capital D darkness. It's a very powerful thing. All I feel I do is entrap people in and let them fall. I like this. Because I will try to do anything for the darkness to go away. This is something I noticed immediately, very quickly, was because being placed in that spot referring specifically to the prior line. All I feel I do is entrap people and let them fall because I am trying to get this darkness to go away. This is fascinating. Really. I let them. And why do I let them? Because I am trying. Because maybe, I don't know, just ideas that come to head. Maybe it is that since I am trying, I think I can stop the darkness first. Before they fall, before they break every bone. If I fix myself, even though they've already come into the darkness, I can stop this. Right? Could be that I'm trying so hard that I don't even notice. This is a bit more of a darker interpretation, perhaps. I'm so focused on stopping the darkness that I don't stop other people from coming into it. A more, not selfish, self-centered introspection, but like harmful, right? As a sort of side note, I'm not confident that any of these are the right interpretation. I don't believe in a right interpretation. And I think that is one of the most important things to get in your head as you analyze poetry. There is no right interpretation. And once you accept that, you can allow any idea in your head to go onto the page and become a potential interpretation. So who knows what this is really saying, right? For the darkness to be filled with light once more, so it was once light, I was never this deep before, but I have been hollowed out, and it is harder and harder to fill what has been lost. This is like optimistic, and then it's not, which I really like. You're saying for the darkness to be filled, you're offering this chance of a solution. For the darkness to be filled with light once more, comma, what I'm expecting to hear is, I could do this. There is a solution that will let the light in. I was never this deep before. And then you just sort of skip that and say, but I've been hollowed out, and it's harder and harder to fill what has been lost. It's almost like, in a sense, the mind, the poet, the writer, the poem resists this idea. And this makes sense. You're in a pit. When you are at the top of the pit, or at least still falling, we have our pit. We got like broken bones at the bottom. Can't really see the white. When we're at the top, we can see the light coming in. And again, the yellow is kind of hard to see. I don't really like black pages. I don't know why it's not set up with those. Can I edit this page? this is like, in a sense, sort of non-important to your writing, like how you format your page, but also having like nice aesthetic work to look at is really nice. So we're in this pit, and the sun is up here shining down, right? And the further we go into the pit, the less we can see the light. And here we are at the bottom, laying here, bones broken, unable to see at all the sun, right? And that's what this line is saying to me. Giving this idea of the sun above, this hope, this lightness, and then just crashing back to the reality that we think, or a perceived reality, that it's just impossible to get out. There is no light. We can't fill what has been lost. I fear all light is gone and will never return. So there it is again, right? That's the theme, right? That's the most important line. And oftentimes we'll find the most important ideas toward the end of the poem. We build up, we develop, and then we conclude. Because who can fill a pit as deep as mine? The idea of who is important. You talk about other people every so often in this poem. I haven't really discussed that. Talk about other people falling in, the pit swallowing others and hurting others. And you know that that's what the pit does. Yet, you also look to others to fill it. And let them in and let them fall. That is the most painful thing, right? Obviously it's painful for us to be in the pit, but considering I have experienced similar pits, maybe you don't agree, but I would say the more painful thing is watching someone else, maybe someone we care about, someone we love, get dragged down into the pit with us, you know, this chain that pulls them down into the pit, connected to us. That hurts. And we see that the pit is connected to others and pulls people in. And we say, well, maybe some other person, maybe this person will come down and bring us both back out. That's the hope, right? Unfortunately, I don't think that's the reality. In this sense, I'm criticizing the thought process here. And it's the thought process of something like depression and anxiety and suffering that gets twisted. Because who can fill this pit? ArsonAsher. You can. The only person who can fill the pit is you. Because, we go back to the start, your first acknowledgement. You're the pit. And in this sense, when we separate the pit from us, it can be good and it can be bad. Adding this space. When we say the pit is within us, because sometimes this helps us look at the pit and say, this is harmful to me. The pit has been filled. Yay! That makes me really happy. And did you fill the pit? So, when we separate our pits from us, and we say that that is not us, it can be helpful. Because now from over here, we can see the pit, right? We can see that it is a thing inside of us. We can acknowledge its existence. But if we aren't careful, the pit being separate and out here can mean an amount of denialism, an amount of saying like, yeah, the pit isn't me, which means other people can deal with it, and there are other ways to deal with it, but of course the pit is you. The only way to deal with it is you. And that's hard. So on first read, this poem is very much like about depression. And it is. Still, after analysis, to me, about depression, because that's something I've experienced. And you say, okay, this is someone like moping around and being sad because, like, the darkness, the hurt, the pain, all this stuff, right? And you also wonder, like, but then upon further reflection, on a very long, circuitous path, you find that there's more nuance to it. Some hope, some tragedy, some hypocrisy, right? And maybe the person in this darkness, in this pain, didn't even understand that there was hope in this poem that they were writing. Because a lot of times we write sad poems and don't realize that we're actually writing poems that have a little bit of hope and a little bit of chance to help us, right? And that's something to note in poems and in our own poetry, in my, I'll make it about me, not us, in my poetry. A lot of the times I write things. I write this amazing poem, put it on a page, and it's great. And it's sad. And it has a lot of my feelings in it. And it feels like a good way to release those feelings. Right? Because I guess I have put the feelings on the page. They're not really in me anymore. And a lot of times I don't want to go back here. Because why would I? It's all the bad feelings. But I think maybe this poem is a reminder that there's value in reflecting on our work, which I don't do. I don't do this, like, enough. Basically ever. We should go through and analyze my own poems. I think that'd be really funny, like a year back. Because when you reflect, you can find that there's a lot more, maybe, than just the first impression. And at least when I write, my writing is sort of I write based on the first impression. I'm not analyzing my own poetry, right? It just comes out, and then it's done. And maybe there's value to going back and reflecting. I enjoy trying to get a lesson for myself out of every poem. Like, this poem has helped me realize something. This poem, reading this poem, was a positive experience for me, for my growth. And that's what poetry is good for. It's communication. We teach other people lessons with our words. And right, I don't think there's a better way to show that than me going and learning something from your poem. And so yeah, it's a great poem. It's not overly technical or verbose. You know, you could go through and take synonyms for all these words and make this sound so much more sophisticated with big words, but it doesn't need to be more than this, because the way that the simple language, the I am versus the my pit, so simple, such simple language, and yet has a lot to say. King Poyo, welcome in. I just read a poem by ArsonAsher, chatter here in chat, and I'm gonna go, so something that I often forget at the end of the process is to read it again. What we did first, we just did a read through to enjoy the poem, and now we have a lot of context to what each of these words mean. So now if we read it again, and put down the pen, we're done with the pen. We're done with the pen, right? And say, how does this feel now, right? Deep. I am a black pit, too deep to be filled. I feel people do not realize how deep my pit is until they have fallen too far into the darkness and broken all of their bones. All I feel I do is entrap people in and let them fall, because I will try to do anything for the darkness to go away, for the darkness to be filled with light once more. I was never this deep before, but I've been hollowed out, and it is harder and harder to fill what has been lost. I fear all light is gone and will never return. Because who can fill a pit as deep as mine? ArsonAsher, thank you for sharing your poem. Not gonna lie, it looks like your notes after your English teacher gives us a speech and gives us all the annotations. Yeah, I've been told I'm giving English teacher vibes here, so this is what I think y'all should be doing. Not to be normative about it, that's the word I was looking for earlier. Normative ethics, to say this is what you should do. Not to be normative, but if I didn't go through all the annotations, I wouldn't get all these conclusions and these helpful things, and you probably heard at the end, compared to the first time, if you're here for the whole time, that the way I read it changed. It'd be really interesting to go through and put the two clips back to back. The first time I read it, the last time I read it. because now I knew to emphasize, for me, this feeling of I am versus my pit, and the way that this moves forward and has optimism and then trails off and falls back into the pit. If I didn't analyze all that, I wouldn't be able to read it like that. And that's why spending 45 minutes with a poem is a really beneficial thing. Right? And thank you for reading it, you say. Thank you. Thank you. See my face. Thank you. ArsonAsher, thank you for sharing. I don't get to teach like this on stream without having people share. And it's so much more personal when you're in chat and it's your poem, or anyone who's a chatter, right? Can I give you a chant from my book from the Sin Summoning Ritual? Yes. So I really like, so I have a Google form. It's in contact in the about page. And then ArsonAsher sent me another poem, or just the name of a poem, like something that they have to analyze for class, to look at as well. So I would really appreciate it if you send that poem in the Google form, because then like the backlog gets saved, right? Because I don't think, at least right now in this moment, I'm gonna analyze any other writing. It's a very emotional thing to dig into work, and a sin summoning ritual sounds very emotional. But if you submit it, it means I will get to it on a further stream when you are in chat. Or just later today. I just want to do some calligraphy. Also maybe do that personality test. Yeah, I'm going to do the personality test. So go do something light. But yeah, if you send it in the form, I will get to it. That sound good? Because, like, I really don't want to miss anything that you all are sharing with me, but I also, yay, personality test. But I also can't just, I guess, be only spending my time reading other people's stuff, because I have stuff I want to do.